Bloodied builds will be drastically nerfed with update 22, but what are the nerf rates exactly? There's a lot of discussion going on right now, but most lack proper data. So I decided to test over 25 bloodied weapons. Let me share the results. Hello everyone, welcome back to another Fallout 76 video. I have recently asked you guys and girls if you would like to see how much is Bloodied really getting nerfed, and the voting was really impressive. 3,000 of you voted and most said yes, so here we are. Ever since the PTS reopened with update 22, there has been a lot of discussion about the upcoming player damage nerf, which is affecting Bloodied builds the most. How so? Well, the new damage rules apply to damage modifiers. They used to be just multipliers, now they became additive multipliers. Now, Bloodied builds use many different damage multipliers, as you should know, such as damage perks, gear legendary effects, and even mutations. So it makes sense that the nerfs are more significant for Bloodied. As such, I decided to test and compare 27 bloodied weapons I own to obtain concrete data. Note that the nerf rates you are about to see apply only to my build. If you change the damage modifiers, you will get slightly different results. This works for every weapon in update 22, by the way. Yes, all weapons are getting nerfed, in case you didn't know yet. Nevertheless, you can have a very solid idea of what's coming and what to expect, at least regarding bloodied weapons in update 22. Anyway, enough intro here, let's get into what matters, shall we? Before I start with the damage test, I should probably tell you the comparison criteria, right? Otherwise, it would be like comparing a beef burger with a vegan burger, you know? It might look the same, might taste similar, but it's clearly not the same. So first of all, I am using a full unwielding set, followed by 8 common mutations used in most bloodied builds as shown in the footage. I also used all my build perks, including weapon damage perks. In some weapons I excluded these perks because I do not have them, but I will leave a note when that happens, so don't worry about it. Why did I go for this criteria instead of just comparing the weapon-based damage though? Well, what's the use in testing if you're not going to be realistic? Who plays without perks, without gear, you know? Plus, remember, the nerf intensifies with the more damage modifiers you are using, so I try to be as faithful to my standard gameplay as possible. Lastly, I compare this with Nerd Rage On, since I usually play with less than 20% HP, and without any food or aid buffs. That's pretty much it, so let's test things out. I will start by comparing my combat shotgun, which is basically my primary weapon for a long time. Cheap ammo, lots of close range damage, ideal for farming. Anyway, this weapon got a heavy nerf, almost 50% less damage, but the great news is that it hardly makes a difference. How so? Let me explain. With update 21 right now, I can basically one-hit everything with very few exceptions, such as world bosses. With update 22 and the damage nerfs, I can still one-hit some enemies here and there, but most now require 2 hits to go down. When adrenaline is stacked up though, I can basically one-hit most enemies all the same, and I do believe if I used food and aid buffs, things will be basically as before. So yes, 50% damage reduction might sound scary at first, but when you compare the gameplay and you check the damage output, you quickly realize it's not a big deal, and you get quickly used to it, trust me. Of course, you do less damage, the weapon is weaker, but you can still kill most enemies in a blink of an eye, and that's exactly what matters, isn't it? Next, I tested my second most favorite weapon, my 50 cal Bloodied Explosive Machine Gun. In my opinion, this is one of the strongest weapons in the game, excluding the bugged magic ones, of course. And just like the shotgun, it got a similar nerf, 48% to be exact. Now, if you can slightly notice the difference with the shotgun, with the 50 cal things are a little bit different. And by that I mean, you can hardly notice anything really. You do less damage, yes, but you can kill enemies just as fast as before. And that's a great thing, because again, the damage you can do with this weapon is insane. So if you don't care about saving bullets, as I usually do by shooting one bullet at a time, I can guarantee you are going to melt enemies as fast as before the nerf, really. Just freely shoot anything you see and yes, enemies melt all the same. It doesn't really matter before or after the patch. I even tried with the new daily ops enemies, which are stronger, and yep, they go down really quickly. It's like the damage nerf doesn't even exist. And that's a great thing, don't you think? I also tested my Gauss minigun, one of the latest weapons added to Fallout 76 with the Wastelanders DLC. Surprisingly, this weapon only got a 38% damage nerf, so as you can imagine, nothing much has changed. In fact, I believe the Gauss minigun will rise in popularity with Update 22 because it is one of the energy weapons that got the lowest nerf rate, as you will see in the next entries. Anyway, I still carried on with the damage tests, and as expected, I melted everything without any issues. The weapon felt really strong on the PTS, especially when fighting the new daily ops enemies. The damage felt very similar to my 50 cal damage output, and that's because their damage is now very similar with Update 22, 237 base damage with my build for the Gauss minigun, and 243 for the 50 cal. So yeah, as I reported, the gameplay is very similar in terms of damage now. It's just the Gauss minigun takes longer to charge as every heavy energy weapon. Still, it is very strong and the nerf was quite small, at least compared to most of the weapons I tested. Another weapon that hardly got touched was the Bloodied Explosive Light Machine Gun. I was very surprised to find out that Bethesda only nerfed it by 26% because, let's be honest here, this weapon is really powerful as well. It used to be my boss weapon before I got the 50 cal actually, especially because the fire rate is one of the highest in game. It's almost a double as the 50 cal, for example, yet the damage per bullet is still higher than 200 damage. That's insane. So if you are using one of these, don't worry, you will not feel a difference at all. The 26% nerf is very little, and since you can shoot so fast with the light machine gun, it's like nothing even happened. You can shoot really slowly to save ammo if you want, and you will still melt any high-level enemy. It is the way it is. It is crazy good, and I can see more people using this type of weapon after Update 22 as well, because it's one of the least nerfed ranged weapons, so it would make sense, right? The Bloodied Gatling Plasma is one of the most affected weapons. It got extremely nerfed with Update 22, and I'm not really sure why. The nerf is almost 80% and the difference is abysmal when compared to, well, what we have right now. It is a fact the Gatling Plasma is or was extremely strong. Even without the explosive legendary effect, this weapon melts basically any enemy, and it is highly effective against bosses as well. However, with the Update 22 damage nerf, things changed quite a lot. From over 300 damage, I now have 70 for my Gatling Plasma, and that means I need way more hits to kill anything. Moreover, this weapon takes a while to charge, which makes things much more difficult to handle. I did have issues killing high-level enemies like super mutants or creatures such as gulpers and anglers. You need dozens of hits to take them down now, and that's a shame. At least humanoids like blood eagles and ghouls go down very fast, but it's not always like that. Also, the new enemies require dozens of hits to get downed. I won't say this weapon is useless now because it isn't, but it is much weaker than before. And with way better alternatives out there, why would you stick with this weapon after update 22, Well, the Bloodied Gatling laser is another fine example of extreme damage nerf. It seems like Bethesda really wants people to stop using heavy energy weapons. Why? I'm not sure yet. The Gatling laser got nerfed by 81% for me, and from a decent 129 damage per hit, I now deal 25 damage. It sounds more like a joke. I wouldn't believe it if I didn't see proof, honestly. But it is real, and this is probably the only weapon I can tell you it is useless now, because you will probably die before you can kill high-level enemies. You know, a Bloodied build player with low HP who needs to do 20 plus hits on a single mob. Things won't have a happy ending, it's quite obvious. Anyway, things are really ugly for this weapon. You need to spam standing still for some seconds for enemies to go down. It's actually sad, and it feels like you are tickling enemies most of the time, so I really don't think this weapon will be used that much after update 22 goes live. I mean, you can still use it, but you're going to have a hard time, plus you will need way more ammo to be able to spam 8 times more. So yeah, it's not such great news for Gatling laser players. Alright, now let's move to one-hand melee weapons. I will make the comparisons more generic now because honestly the nerfs are very similar to one another and in the end they don't matter that much. Apart from the dead Tambu, which got a drastic 70% damage nerf for some reason, as well as the Shish Kebab, which got a 51 nerf. This weapon wasn't so strong already, now it's even worse, sadly. Moving on, right now with update 21, I can 1-2 hit basically any high-level enemy, with very few exceptions. With update 22, on the other hand, I need 2 to 4 hits to kill high-level enemies. So yes, there is a difference, especially with the scaled up mobs, but in general, one-hand melee weapons are still very viable. They do tons of damage, plus the charged attacks can normally one-hit enemies, and things are quite balanced in my opinion. But yes, as you were able to see already, most Bloodied one-hand melee got nerfed by 40 to 45%, including daggers, blades, and swords. It's not a lot, but it is a significant amount. Of course, I do not own every single one-hand weapon out there for a full conclusion, but I think 10 Bloodied weapons from this category are more than enough to give you a general idea of how much these weapons got nerfed. The downside here is that playing with such low HP and requiring a few extra hits to kill enemies can get you killed more often, but that's going to be the new reality after update 22. So get ready for the changes. What about two-hand Bloodied melee weapons? Don't worry, I've got a few to compare as well. I only have 6 to show you here, but all of them have a very consistent nerf, 40 to 50%. The nerf is a little bit higher than one-hand weapons, but the gameplay effects are way inferior. What does this mean? Well, playing with Bloodied two-hand melee weapons after update 22 feels quite similar to update 21, to be honest. I can basically one-hit everything as I could before. How comes? Well, that's because before the nerf we had weapons with crazy damage numbers, like 1800 damage from the Super Sledge or the Grognak axe. When a normal high-level enemy has, what, a few hundreds of HP points? So even though two-handed weapons got about 50% less damage now, they are still strong enough to one-hit most enemies in the game. I hope this makes sense to you. After all, 1000 damage is still really great and more than enough to kill most enemies you will find during your journeys. As you can see in my update 22 damage tests, I am easily killing enemies and I'm not even using charged attacks. So enjoy your privilege of a hardly changed gameplay if you often play with bloodied two-hand melee weapons. Let's go over unarmed weapons now, just a little bit, because the only bloodied unarmed weapon I have is a Meathook. I heard bloodied unarmed weapons got nerfed the most, and I can't say I disagree with less damage for this type of weapons, because there were some tricks that allowed people to kill bosses like the Queen in a few hits. So it is understandable that Bethesda wants to balance that. But balance is very different than turning unarmed weapons into something useless, which is what they seem to have done so far. I tested my bloodied Meathook, which did decent damage before. I could want to hit basically everything out there, but with the nerf, which is 73% by the way, this weapon is now pretty much useless. I take several hits to kill any high level enemy, and when it comes to creatures such as anglers and gulpers, I tickle them. Just look at that, it's like I'm using a level 1 normal weapon. I do absolutely no damage. It is a joke if they made all unarmed weapons like the Meathook, because if that's the case, no one will play unarmed anymore when update 22 is released. It's just madness if you do. I have a bloodied 10mm pistol, which I generally use on events when I don't want to one-hit legendary bosses. It does very little damage per hit since I don't have a proper build for pistols, but if I shoot non-stop, I can kill enemies in 1 or 2 seconds. Nevertheless, this pistol got nerfed by 25% for me, but I believe this nerf is greater because I don't have the pistol damage perks, for example. Remember, the nerf increases with the more modifiers you have active. Still, this weapon is pretty okay. I can kill enemies if I spam hit them. I don't think they nerfed pistols that much either. So for what it is, and especially when compared to the damage I can do in update 21, I think this weapon is on the safe side. Next, I have also compared the Bloodied Gamma Gun, which nobody really uses since the fire rate is so slow, and you need to charge it to achieve max damage, so yeah, I can understand why people don't really like this weapon. Anyway, it got nerfed as well on both damage types. My nerf is 31%, but I do not have rifle perks on, so again the nerf is most likely higher than what you are seeing in here. I did a few tests and died for it, just for the sake of this video, and the difference is noticeable. Not too much though, especially when you are able to fully charge your attacks. Regardless, I don't think anyone will care too much about this, since gamma guns are one of the least used ranged weapons in the game right now. So yes, it's normal that the majority of the players won't mind or even noticed this weapon got nerfed, whether the nerf rate was high or low. Now we have a bloodied Tesla, which I turned into a shotgun. This weapon is decent, but it takes me several hits to kill anything. The sad part is that it got a huge nerf, almost 70% as you can see. There is a lot of people using Teslas at the time being, so I think this will be a topic for discussion with the upcoming patch. As I already said, Bethesda has nerfed energy weapons really harshly, and I don't understand why. After testing with update 22, it is very evident that the Tesla is weaker. I need around 4 to 6 hits to kill a high-level enemy, and that's a shame. Moreover, I did not have the rifle perks on, so this nerf could be even higher than 70%, which is very scary indeed. I think this might be another weapon that is really not worth using anymore once the new patch goes live. Lastly, we have the Bloodied Handmade. I tested this weapon on my ult, which is level 97. It does not have an wielding set, and it's missing some essential perks as well. At least it has the rifle damage perks. Anyway, before update 22, I can kill enemies fairly easy, as you can see in the footage. However, after this 30% damage nerf, I had real issues to kill basically anything. I guess due to the one wasteland skill and defense calculations for enemies. I'm not really sure. I died a lot in the process as well. It felt like certain enemies were way more resilient to handmaids, such as super mutants. Again, this nerf is surely higher than what I got, since I am missing a lot of damage modifiers, also in terms of mutations. So you should expect the handmade to become much weaker than what you are used to. Now, let me show you some interesting organized data. The average bloody nerf rate for my bloodied weapons is 47%. It's really not that high, but if you consider some of my favorite weapons got nerfed by 80%, then the entire scene changes, right? I guess I should say goodbye to my Gatling laser and plasma. Well, that's life. I have also organized the 27 tested weapons by nerf rate, so you can see which ones got nerfed the most and which ones got nerfed the least. I always enjoy checking such details, so maybe you do too. At least my most used weapons are at the very middle of the nerf list, so I can't complain that much, huh? I can still kill enemies fast, and I didn't have a lot of issues surviving, even though I was playing with 20% HP as I usually do. So for those of you afraid Bloodied won't be a viable build anymore, you are wrong. Bloodied is here to stay. It's definitely one, if not the strongest builds in game right now, even after this damage nerf, which again should affect every single weapon and build out there, not just Bloodied. So with that being said, let's get into the outro and finish the video. Alright, my damage tests are concluding here. It took me over 5 days to get everything tested and properly organized. I can't say it was easy, but I made it. I hope you guys found this video useful, because it really gave me a lot of work. For those wondering how much damage you are going to lose with your bloodied weapons, well, I hope I could provide you the answer. If not, at least you have a clue of the average nerf rate you will get, which is 47% for me, so yours shouldn't be that far off, unless you are using mostly energy weapons or unarmed weapons. In that case, you, my friend, should be worried. Anyway, that's everything for this video. Thank you so much for watching until this point. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. If you would like to support me even further, go ahead and check the links below the video. Now, I will see you all very soon in the next one. Until then, take care, adios, bye bye!